My husband cheated in the worst way possible with a colleague and forgot about me and our kids. My husband, Jason, started a new job last fall and was working really long hours. I spent most days just trying to manage the kids, the house, the dog and our other animals. I was so overwhelmed dealing with all of that, plus I have a history of depression, so the postpartum journey was really something. The pregnancy itself was difficult because I had gestational diabetes that got pretty bad and I had Braxton Hicks contractions for the last 4 months of the pregnancy. So during this time Jason befriended a colleague, Beth. He started out being honest and telling me what they talked about, and he also told me things about her. I was never jealous or suspicious because he was so forthcoming about everything. She had gotten married just a few months before and had 2 small children like we do. A few months go by and I noticed that Jason started being weird with his phone. He took it everywhere, would never leave it out of his sight. He was also texting a lot more than normal and smiling at his phone. He and Beth were also having secret conversations where you could only read the messages once and then they would only say that it had been delivered. At this point alarm bells started going off and I asked Jason point blank if something was going on between him and Beth. He promised there was absolutely nothing going on and the messages were about work. Beth had a work phone and the company could supposedly access the messages, so they did it this way to not get her in trouble. She was also having some issues with her husband and Jason was trying to be there for her. The feeling that something was off just wouldn't go away. I kept trying to convince myself that I was crazy and imagining things. He was still weird about his phone, so I told him that I feel like I was going crazy and I need him to be honest. At this point he told me that a few days before Beth had confessed that SHE had a crush on him. He said he was upset because she was his friend and confidant and now he couldn't continue talking to her the same way. I was sort of relieved because I wasn't crazy. The following weekend Jason was going to his work Christmas party in the big city close to us. It was also his goodbye to everyone because he quit. I had previously warned him to be careful around Beth at the Christmas party because she was sad and they would all be drinking. The night before I woke up in the middle of the night and had just the most awful feeling, so I went through his phone. We've always had full access to each other's phones, passcodes and all. I found an archived chat where Beth told him she loved him. His reply was, "I love you too. Good night, beautiful." 3. I was heartbroken and livid. I woke him up at 3:30 a.m. and yelled at him. I called him a liar and a cheater. I told him that I deserved better than this and I couldn't believe he would do this to me, to us. My parents divorced because my dad cheated on my mom, so cheating is a really sensitive issue for me. He had also been caught texting 2 other girls before. Once in the very beginning of the relationship and then about 2 weeks before our wedding. I was able to forgive him for these after a lot of talking and a lot of work. Those had also never progressed to even close to this point. Jason said he didn't know why he had told her he loved her too, because he didn't. He said he suspects it was a reflex and it was right before bed, so he was tired and out of it. It sounded like he was still planning on going to the Christmas party, which was an overnight trip by the way. I told him I couldn't guarantee that me and the kids would be waiting for him at home if he went, so he stayed. There was so much arguing for the next couple days and he also confessed to having a crush on Beth. She would not stop texting him during the weekend and actually sent him a long message where she basically said goodbye and that she as sad he didn't come to the Christmas party and missed seeing her in lingerie she had gotten just for him. Ew. Jason was visibly shocked. Update 1. He had told me earlier that they had agreed to never take what they had any further because neither of them were willing to leave their family. Beth's texting got to the point where I texted her off of his phone, first as myself and then as Jason. I know that pretending to be him wasn't good, so I told him exactly what I did and said, which was basically leave us alone and stop texting. I asked him to block her on everything because they were not platonic and she couldn't stay in his life if he wanted me to. He gave me his phone to keep for the time being so that he couldn't secretly text anyone from our spare bedroom where I told him to go sleep. I was probably too lenient and let him come back to our room the next day. The next Monday he had to go to work to sign some paperwork about overtime pay. He was supposed to hang out with another colleague, a man, that night, but it got moved to the following day. Jason said he needed someone to talk to. I was freaking out when he went but managed to calm down after talking to my mom. He kept texting me updates about what was going on and then when he was coming home. He again told me openly what they had talked about, so no worries there. However, the day after he took the dog for a walk and when he came back he got on his computer. He has an iPhone and a MacBook, so they're connected, and there was a weird notification that popped up. It got on his phone and found a deleted conversation between Jason and Beth. Apparently she had a second number that I didn't know about. The texts were about meeting up the day before. He said he changed his mind and came straight home instead. He had also texted her pretty much as soon as he could to tell her that it wasn't him texting her. I felt like he had stabbed me in the back. I don't expect him to always agree with me, but I do expect him to always have my back. But he didn't. I think this hurt more than finding out about his emotional affair. Update 2. I gave him a few options. 1. Let's get an amicable divorce and he can go be with Beth and we'll split custody of the kids 50-50. 2. We stay married and work hard at it and he has to cut Beth out completely. No contact whatsoever. 3. If he chooses number 2 and I find out he lied and kept in contact with Beth, I would not only divorce him but also ask for full custody of the kids. He chose number 2 because he says he's still in love with me and wants us to stay as a family. We've started going to couples counseling because we have a hard time communicating. We always end up getting defensive and it devolves into an argument. He also ended up locking me out of his phone by changing the passcode. He said that he felt like he had no privacy and he didn't trust me to not go through private conversations like the one between him and his dad. Apparently one of our conversations was very similar to the conversation he had with his dad, so he thought I snooped through it, which I didn't. I feel like it's a bit backwards that he doesn't trust me after all of his lies. During our first counseling session I said I wasn't sure if I want us to be together or not. I love him. He's the love of my life, my best friend and the father of my kids. But he broke me. He broke my heart and my trust. He's apologized sincerely, but in the 2 months since I found out I haven't really seen any actions to support this. How can I be sure he won't do this to me again? I don't know how much of me would be left if I had to go through this again. And don't worry, I'm not talking about unaliving myself. I have 2 kids that need me here.